It's training camp preview week. We have previewed the Ravens, and now we preview not the team that I think a lot of Browns fans are necessarily fearing. I think a lot of memes have gone in this direction. So I don't know where we're at with this team, but it's the most interesting team in the AFC North. And it's a classic rival. It's the Pittsburgh Steelers. And to talk Pittsburgh Steelers camp, I'm going to bring in none other than the best around to do so. My AFC North talk cohort, Tony. Tony, how you doing today, man?
I'm doing well. Not worried about the Steelers. Okay. You know,
I didn't
win
say
a
that.
game, win a playoff game. Hey, everybody's feeling great now. Okay, I see.
I didn't say that.
I see you, Cleveland Browns.
Comparatively to the Ravens, there's a little bit of a less concerned situation going on there with the Steelers. You know,
Right.
hey, well, who knows? You know, maybe Dwayne Haskins gets his act together because he's in Pittsburgh.
Yeah, that's really, the Dwayne Haskins era. That's what Browns fans should be worried about.
Somebody should be worried about a Dwayne Haskins era.
Yeah, looking at him. Yeah.
All right. So a lot of interesting things. Again, this is the most interesting team, I think, in the entire division. And one of the more interesting teams in football. I almost wish they had Hard Knocks this year because, boy, that would be a fun one. And they've never been on Hard Knocks. But they're an interesting team because, on one hand, there is a real valid argument to make that this team should still be good, right? They went 11-5 last year. They still have TJ Watt. 12-4. My bad. I don't know why I keep on thinking they went 11-5, but they went 12-4. They won the division last year because they won 11 games in a row. I keep on forgetting about the Indy one. Yep. And they got TJ Watt, they got Minka, they got all these guys coming back, even though they lost a few guys on defense. Theoretically, they got better on offense, right? Because they bring in Najee Harris. You keep Juju Smith-Schuster. You didn't really lose anybody else. And Big Ben is returning. If this were any other year but 2021, we'd be pretty high on the Pittsburgh Steelers right now. But being that the season ended the way it did, I think has greatly affected how people think, to the point to where people think this team that went 12-4 last year might actually go 6-10, which I think is a step too far. And somebody who has done the faulty 6-10 prediction.
You were a year off potentially.
I don't think I was a year off. I think they'll probably get like 10 games this year. But that being said, with everything being all over the place, there's good arguments for the Steelers, there's bad arguments. There's just a lot of uncertainty with this team, which is unusual for Pittsburgh. Where should the expectation level be for the rest of the AFC North fans and for Pittsburgh Steelers fans, quite frankly?
It's a great question because and you hit on all the reasons why. It is such an open question, right? I mean, Steeler fans kind of rest on this idea that Ben Roethlisberger, Mike Tomlin never had a losing season, so why should it start now? And you're right. I mean, this team is still loaded with talent defensively. The defensive line is still one of the best in the league, and you've got you still got one of the best defensive players in the league in TJ Watt, and then Minka at safety. So when you have a defense that's that good, you should be able to win games. But there's a ton of questions, Quincy, everywhere across the roster. Just open questions about young players who need to develop, right? This team is, kind of at the end of the line, it feels like, of this run for the Steelers, the Ben Roethlisberger run. But I think the big worry here is not so much about, Ben Roethlisberger, who's he going to be at 38. It's more about like, hey, who's going to play left tackle? Who's going to play center, right? Is Alex Highsmith going to develop into year 2? Is Cam Sutton good enough to start now? And who's going to play nickel? And who's going to come off the bench? And all these young guys that this team is counting on stepping up, because as you talked about, they lost Bud Dupree, they lost Mike Hilton. I think Steeler fans have to understand this team is likely going to take a step backwards, in the standings. I mean, I don't think this team is headed for 12-4, even if things go well. And this rebuilt young offensive line is better. How much better? We can't expect them to be the best. So we're going to, if they're average, right, then that makes that the offense, a little above average, and the defense probably takes a step back without Bud Dupree, without Steven Nelson, without Mike Hilton. It adds up to a team that, like you said, ends up probably right around 10 wins.
Yeah, it's a super interesting situation. And in the offense, I think it is one of the more, I don't want to say mind-blowing, but like head-scratching things, right? Where, again, if you just look at this, they should be a pretty good offense. If you're looking at this like you would look at like a board game or Madden or whatever you want to go to it, right? You see Chase the Chase Claypool, Juju Smith-Schuster, a really deep wide receiving room. Najee Harris, you spent a first-round pick on a running back. He should at least be league average. Better. He should at the very least be better than what Benny Snell and James Conner brought you. So you have that. Your tight end situation, we love to make the Eric Ebron jokes. It's not a terrible tight end situation, but yet the offense was just so inconsistent last year, and the running game was so bad that we again, it's another situation where we don't know where this offense is going to be. Now, part of that, I know you're going to talk about Randy Fichtner no longer being there and Matt Canada replacing him. Maybe that makes a huge difference. But where do you think the biggest difference is going to have to be made? Is it going to be that offensive line play where that's going to be the most critical in terms of making a difference here? Or is it going to just be Randy Fichtner not being there by default is going to make this team better?
I mean, I do lean on that second point a little bit because I do think Fichtner by the end of the year, right? Once teams understood how the Steelers were winning and how they were being effective offensive, that kind of, throw short, run long thing that Fichtner wanted to do. Once they figured out that, that's the not only is that what you want to do, that's the only thing you can do. We don't have to worry about anything else. Everything fell apart from that point. You look back to that, that first Ravens game where, okay, the Steelers kept winning after that, but it didn't look the same, and then it just kept getting worse and worse and worse throughout the year, and they never recovered from it. We could talk about the second half of the Colts game, but that was 2 quarters of football. That was a complete aberration when you look at the 7 games surrounding it. So, I think it has to start with the offensive line. I do, because I think a lot of what happened last year and why the Steelers felt like they had to be that, hey, we're just going to throw short and run long type deal is look, it worked for Ben with having a bad elbow, right? And under what's he going to be after this elbow? Well, don't make him throw long, just make him throw short passes. That'll work for a season. We'll figure it out. You got guys who are pretty good run after catch guys like Juju and like Deontay Johnson. But I think going into 2021, you have to fix the offensive line because this team has to be able to run play action. You have to be able to trust that Ben Roethlisberger can see the field and do the things that he really didn't do well at the end of last season. And the reason, that's going to happen is you have to get the running game going again. I mean, if the running game is going and teams are not just worried about Ben Roethlisberger 100% of the time, and they're worried about Najee Harris and what he's going to bring to the table, well, then that can open things up defensively. Now, all of a sudden, teams have in the back of their mind, oh, wait, hold on. What am I looking at here? This isn't just a pass. This could be a run. And then, all the things that come off of that. So I think, for me, it starts with the game plans offensively, but the game plan none of this whole play action, we're going to do outside zone, we're going to do all this stuff works if the offensive line is bad. If the offensive line is bad again, and this team can't run the ball and they have to throw 50 times a game, I think it's going to look a lot like it did at the end of last season.
Yeah, and that'd be interesting there. Let's talk real quick about Najee Harris. How much of an impact do you think he can make this year, being that, I don't think the offensive line is necessarily bad. It's just we don't know at all what this offensive line is going to be. And the lack of premium investments being in that offensive line doesn't give you great confidence that it's going to be one of those good situations. So with that being the case, how much can you realistically expect out of Najee? Because first round running back, you would have to expect a lot out of him, but given the circumstances.
Yeah, I mean, the offensive line is this gigantic question mark in Pittsburgh because it's 5 completely new players now, and every person on that offensive line has a big question mark, right? I mean, you have Chooks going to the left side. Who knows what he's going to be? Who's going to play center? What's Try Turner going to be now? Coming off of the injury he had. So the expectation for Najee Harris is he just needs to be better than the Steelers were last year, especially in short yardage. I think where you're going to see Najee excel and where this team was pitiful last year was 3rd and 1 situations. Najee Harris is at least a better instinctive back, more vision to get that yard when he needs it and not dance behind the line and all the, the craziness we saw with guys like Benny Snell a year ago. So if they can improve in that way in the running game, I mean, that's a start for me. I don't expect that he's going to be, 5 yards a carry or anything like that because I don't have as high of expectations as some other Steeler fans. I think the Steelers offensive line will be, below average in all likelihood, which means Najee Harris is probably going to be, a guy who puts up, maybe close to 1,000 yards.
It'd be interesting to see too, because you talk about needing to improve in short yardage. I know with young running backs, sometimes that's where they can struggle just because they're used to being able to have those extra cutback lanes in college or being able to make things happen. So that might be an adjustment that Najee better make early in camp, because if not, then you are still talking about Benny Snell and Kalen Ballage behind him.
Yeah, but I think that's one of the things I really liked about Najee, and I think it's one of the things that drew the Steelers to Najee is his polish coming out, is how much, there are times, certainly like every young running back, where he tries to do too much, where he tries to make something happen where it's not there. But those times are few and far between, and generally, he takes what the defense is going to give him, and I think that's one of his better aspects. The other thing, by the way, we should talk about with Najee Harris is using him out of the backfield and how much that really wasn't the case a season ago. This is going to be, I think, a big part of the Matt Canada offense is utilizing him out of the backfield. They didn't really do that last year, obviously, with Benny Snell and Connor kind of being up and down, and especially the injury problems he had late in his career. Wasn't much of a factor there. But again, that's another one of those little wrinkles you can add to an offense. Just to, again, keep defenses on their toes. And I think that's going to be such a big part of what the Steeler offense wants to do.
And of course, we got to talk about the elephant in the room when it comes to the Pittsburgh Steelers offense, and it's Big Ben, right?
Yeah.
One of the things because I think it's been a little overrated how bad Ben was at the end of the year. I think, look, he was obviously bad. And you can make the argument that could be the trajectory, but I don't think it's fair to project him to be as bad as he was in some of his worst career games last year for the whole season. Now, he could get benched. I'm not saying he's above that at this point in his career, but what I am saying is that with Big Ben comes a presence, right? There is a certain element of he's still Big Ben that goes into the offensive game plan that does change the offense. I remember looking at the numbers when it came to play action. When Randy Fichtner was there, I believe they had between like 4 different quarterbacks, at least 80 play action snaps. And then with Ben, the whole year, it was like 40.
No, it was like 11. It was like 11. No, it's absurdly low.
Yeah, it was the lowest number by a significant margin in the NFL. Like number 2 wasn't even close. It was a very small amount, and it was much smaller than it was the year before. So I guess the big question when it comes to Ben isn't if he can still do it, but is he good enough to justify some of the things that the baggage that comes with a Ben offense? Like, has that, what do you call it? Like a teeter-totter, I guess is a terrible analogy, but has that teeter-totter finally came off balance for him where it's too much in one direction where, if you have Ben out there, you're going to have to run the offense a certain type of way, and he's just not good enough to justify it anymore.
Yeah, we'll see. We'll see if that's going to be the case, right? Because I think this is where you and I differ on what this offense is going to look like. Ben's joked this offseason about how, it's going to be this 100% different, right? It's obviously not going to be 100% different. They're still going to do the things, they're still going to do the things that Ben likes. But I do think, that's going to come with, look, I think they're going to run play action this year. I mean, the idea that they only ran like 11 snaps of play action last year, that's got to be out the window. Matt Canada, if you watch what he did in college, there's no way that guy's going to be convinced to go to the National Football League and only run play action 11 times in a 16 games season. I mean, or now it's against 17 games, right? So maybe they run it 13 times because they have extra games.
Run a game.
No, it's absurd. In the modern NFL, it's like it's malpractice to not run play action more than 11 times in a season. And so I think Matt Canada, I think he's going. The question for me, right, getting at your question there is how do Matt Canada and Ben Roethlisberger, right? How does that mesh? What does that look like? This is the big question I have about this season. How do those two get along? Specifically, at the beginning of the season, if this team starts against Buffalo. Buffalo's a good team, good defense. If it doesn't go well to start, how early do both guys start looking at each other and going like, you're the issue, right? Because Ben's going to look at Matt Canada and go, look, we started 11-0 last year. Sure, it ended bad, but we started 11-0 last year. Okay, we were doing fine. And Canada's going to look at Ben and go, look, man, I've had a ton of success with quarterbacks who are more mobile, who are willing to throw the ball down the field more, who are willing to run play action more, right? You need to start buying into my stuff. And how long does it take before we get to that point? Because it does feel like if this team doesn't start, not necessarily hot, but if they don't start, at least at a 500 pace where they're, winning as much as they're losing, if this team starts 0-2, 0-3, like we saw them start 2 years ago, I'm nervous, Quincy. I'm nervous about what that version of the team looks like.
That honestly, it sounds like a collision course because Ben has a history with not getting along with certain offensive coordinators, especially ones that are going to be forceful on what they want him to do. Mm-hmm. And you have to also consider one of the things I was thinking about. What if Ben is open to doing the play action, but the offensive line gets obliterated the first 2 games?
Right.
There's no more play action for the rest of the season after that.
Or if it just doesn't work, right? I mean, if it just, let's say the Steelers come out, they run this Matt Canada things, all these shifts, all these motions, all these end arounds, right? They're running outside zone, they're doing play action off of it, and they lose to the Bills 27-10, right? What is and this is another point, which is, and this is I think the Steelers' biggest concern in 2021: leadership. Ben Roethlisberger's never been the leader in the locker room. He's always been. Yeah, and this goes back to all the way early in his career, where he's kind of been this aloof player who a lot of players early in his career said that, Ben wasn't a good teammate early on. Now he's tried to get better, but he's not a natural leader in that locker room. They're losing a bunch of guys this season, especially on offense. Pouncey, DeCastro, Villanueva. These are guys who in the locker room were natural leaders. All of those guys are gone. And now you're headed towards a season where you potentially could have a quarterback versus coordinator battle, like we saw a couple years back between Ben and Todd Haley. But unlike then, there is no Heath Miller in the room, right? There is no Marquise Pouncey. There are no veterans in that room to play mediator, right? You have Juju and Claypool and Najee Harris and all these young guys who I think some of them will grow up to be great leaders, right? As they mature in this league. But in 2021, they're not going to play that role. And so it's really up to Mike Tomlin here to this is a dangerous game he's playing, and he has to be ready to play mediator between that if this thing doesn't start hot.
Yeah, and then also when it comes to, you can be somebody like Najee Harris could be ready to be a leader, but he ain't got enough.
No gravitas.
None. NFL. Yeah, there is a level of and that's the thing I think about with Matt Canada and Big Ben is Matt Canada, most of his accolades have come in college, and I don't know if Big Ben's the type of person to respect that. We just don't know what this dynamic's going to be like. It's training camp right now, so they're going to get matching tattoos and be best friends and call each other brothers.
They're BFFs. They love it.
But we'll see how the season goes with that one. That's going to be an interesting one to look at because, you could definitely see where that situation gets toxic, where Matt Canada, he grabs either one of the other quarterbacks, and that makes that his guy. And then there's this friction in the quarterback room, and there's all kind of awkward stuff going on there. And I would hate to see a world where they're like, "Hey, Juju, can you sort this out for us, baby?"
but I will say, there's the alternate version of this, right? I don't want to sound like just Tony the hater again, but because there is a version of this where it does work, right? The offensive line, is around average, and Najee Harris is running, and the play action is working, and they have some guys. I mean, this offense, if they wanted to run 12 out of this offense right now, they really could. And it could be dangerous doing so with guys like Claypool, who's very good deep, and Deontay, who's very good in open space, and Juju and everything he brings in the slot. I think that this offense if it has the personnel to easily work. The problem here is the personalities. Don't necessarily mesh.
To be fair, I think it's more likely than not that they just end up having pretty a 8-8 to 10-6 kind of uneventful type of year than it is that they kind of blow up like this. It's just more fascinating to talk about.
It's very easily. I mean, this is why I keep saying, I got in this big fight with Steeler fans last week because Mike Tannenbaum made this quote where he said, Ben Roethlisberger could get benched this year, right? He expects Ben to get benched, and Steeler fans are like, this is absurd, this is insane. I can't believe he would say this. Steeler fans, do we not remember the Bengals game last year? Ben Roethlisberger should have been benched in that game. He had 19 yards passing, 2 turnovers at halftime. Okay. The only reason he didn't get benched is because that team had won 11 games in a row to that point. And so, okay, you're not going to bench a player who's won 11 in a row. Fine. But if he had that same performance in week 2 or week 3 of 2021, after the team starts 1-1 or 0-2 and doesn't look good offensively, you have to believe that Mike Tomlin is thinking about putting Mason Rudolph in a game. So, it absolutely could happen the other way. Yeah.
Yeah, because if Mike Tomlin finishes 6-10, he's fired.
Well, I don't.
They'll be like, you went 8-8 with Duck and Mason, but you went 6-10.
It certainly puts him on the hot seat, which is so strange for a guy who's
he's been historically great, right?
Yeah, he's been to 2, division title winner.
Every year I hear the Steelers might go 8-8. They talk about firing Mike Tomlin. Let them actually go below 8-8. I think they'll probably try to. Well, I don't know if management would do it, but I think fans will want to.
The fans. Anytime this team, even the 8-8 year, right? I mean, you look at the collapse that the Steelers had at the end of the 8-8 year. Right? They were 8-5. They went 8-8. Okay, it was a bad collapse at the end of the year, but I mean, they had Duck and they had Mason, and they were winning games on smoke and mirrors defensively. That was it. We look. At the time, it felt bad that team went from 8-5 to 8-8. But today, hindsight being 2020, it's incredible how was that team 8-5? That team was 8-5 at a certain point of that year with Mason Rudolph and Duck Hodges as their quarterback.
Mike Tomlin's got one of them Doc Rivers situations where it's just unfortunate where his losses end up coming. Because it's what 2 years in a row of collapses.
3 years in a row of collapses.
3 years in a row. And it's not like it's isolated. Like you go to other years and find other collapses or other just like inexcusable losses. I mean, the Tim Tebow one's obviously up there. Like
Blake Bortles.
Blake Bortles ones. That's probably honestly worse.
I don't know. I mean, I was at the Blake Bortles one, so obviously it felt worse because I spent a bunch of money to fly up to Pittsburgh and go to the game. But the Tim Tebow one was just.
You could argue there was something more than football going on with the Tim Tebow one. Like there was something
divine intervention. Okay,
there was something else going on with that game. Like you could say that was the most fluky game. The Blake Bortles one, like Blake Bortles ain't. That's just
yeah. But that defense that year was just not great. And so the fact that look, obviously no one should be the fact that team, that Jaguar team, the week before, like struggled to put up a touchdown against the Bills.
Yeah, it was
right.
Bad.
But I don't know. Yeah, the Steelers had lost to the Jaguars already that year. That was the game Ben Roethlisberger threw 6 interceptions. So the fact that they lost to the Jaguars again, I guess wasn't that. Funny story. I actually went to both games. I traveled to Pittsburgh twice that year to see 2 games in 2017. Saw both Jaguars games, lost them both. It might even be my fault. I might have been the bad luck.
Yeah. might so. But let's real quick touch on this defense. There's really not much to talk about here. I mean, they added Melvin Ingram.
Big signing, big. We're gonna address this. We're gonna address this on AFC North Talk, Quincy. Okay, yeah. Because.
Which would have been, I think, after this video gets posted. So if you want to hear expanded thoughts on the Melvin Ingram signing there.
5:45 p.m. Tuesday. Check it out.
Watch him talk about how Melvin Ingram's pressures do matter, while last week talking about how Clowney's pressures did not matter.
Well, they do. It's a different expectation level, right? Clowney's going to start. Ingram's going to come off the bench. Okay, we'll address all this tomorrow. I don't want to take AFC North Talk content and put it here. So we'll save it. We'll save it for AFC North Talk. But
all right. But you're returning Minka, the cornerback situation, right outside of like safety. Mm-hmm. That's the big concern for this team. Is this going to be one of those things where you're hoping young guys pop up? But to be fair, it's not like that's had a history of happening there in Pittsburgh where some of those young guys have stepped up there in the last 10 or so years.
Well, I mean, in the last 10 or so years, no, but in the last 2 or so years, the more you shorten that window, Quincy, the better it looks, right? I mean, they have developed Cam Sutton recently. He's going to be the first guy drafted who's going to start, not because of his draft position, but because of his play on the field in a really long time in Pittsburgh. So that's nice. They got Mike Hilton. They developed Mike Hilton. I mean, look, he was an undrafted guy, but he's still developed within the organization. They've done a decent job recently, and I really do like. And I know it's become a meme. I've become a meme on Twitter talking about this, and I did the same thing on Instagram. I love James Pierre. I really do, and I know there's not a lot of reps out there of him, but man, look, the fact that this kid comes in, plays gunner, plays special teams, is a very good gunner.
Wait,
he's a gunner. He's a gunner. Everyone knows your ability to play gunner is a prelude to your ability to be a future.
I know. I mean, we're talking about a guy getting like 1 or 2 snaps. Yeah, like he's gonna get number 2 corner snaps next year, right?
Well, it depends. So he had 2 interceptions in minicamp, both against Ben Roethlisberger. So. Not nothing, but considering how easy some of Ben's picks were at the end of last season, that remains to be seen who did well and who did poorly in that situation. We shall see. But now look, James Pierre played like 20 snaps last year, right? 11 of them against the pass. The thing with Pierre, though, I really do like is he had 11 really good snaps. And as someone who has watched a lot of Steeler fans or a lot of Steeler film and a lot of Steeler corners, I will tell you, when you look at the bad ones, right? When we remember Antoine Blake, Ross Cockrell, right? All the bad corners that came through Pittsburgh. There are very few times where you can watch 11 straight snaps of one of those players and be like, oh no, all those were good. No. So I do like, and look, the fact that Pierre rose up the roster, past Justin Lane, a 3rd round pick. I think the arrow is certainly pointing up for this kid. And you listen to some of the coaches, and they think they're talking him up as well. So. Yeah, I think they're betting big on Pierre because they cut Steven Nelson for seemingly no reason. I mean, they say it's for salary cap reasons. They saved like $8 million. They have $13 million. Right? We don't know what the Melvin Ingram deal is yet. They have $13 million right now. Okay, so unless that Melvin Ingram deal is like $7 million, they could have worked this in without cutting Steven Nelson. So I think they're betting big. They're betting on the idea that they can build from within, that they have some good young talent there, and they can save that Steven Nelson money for the future. But you're right. They don't have a nickel right now. They have no nickel. I mean, if they're going to start Cam Sutton on the outside, their nickel corner situation is going to be some guy that no one's ever heard of before, right? If it's someone on the roster, it'll be like Antoine Brooks, which Quincy, I don't know if you knew who Antoine Brooks is, but he's a safety from last season who can play in the box, and I guess they feel like maybe he could play nickel.
Sounds like you guys are going to be picking up somebody at the Ravens cut.
It's James Pierre or bust. I mean, it's either James Pierre works out for this team, or this team is going to be picking up a corner here in the next couple of weeks, or maybe it's Malik Hooker or something like that. I mean, they could do some things.
Well, he's not going to play next year, is he?
Malik Hooker? I think
Is he playing? Is he good?
The intention will be for him to play. Yeah.
All right. Well, I'm going to ask you one quick yes or no. You get to expand on it a little bit. Question here: if Joe Hayden goes down in camp, week 1.
Yeah.
Are you uneasy about that situation?
I love James Pierre. Love him. Listen, James Pierre is going to unseat Joe Hayden no matter what.
If Joe Hayden goes down, James Pierre replacing Joe Hayden?
Yeah.
Is he the one? Is he the one guy? Oh,
he's the first guy off the bench. I mean, look, that's who he was. And I don't want to look. I guess we have to kind of separate the meme from reality, right? James Pierre was the first guy off the bench last year when Joe Hayden went. Joe Hayden had COVID during the playoff game, and so Cam Sutton came in to replace him. But the guy in dime who came in, because Cam Sutton would go and play, he was a dime linebacker last year. When that happened, James Pierre came in. James Pierre played in that game. He actually had a pass breakup against Baker Mayfield in that playoff game.
That was one of his 11 snaps.
That was one. Yes, that's one of the 11. Yeah, of course. So, played. And again, it's the hallmark of a great player is to play well in the playoff games, right? Big players come up big in big moments. So, just another thing. I just want to work that. But no, look, if the cornerback situation, in real talk for a second, the cornerback situation is the biggest problem in Pittsburgh. If James Pierre does not turn out to be the great player that I think he will, okay, they have a massive issue at corner. And maybe they're betting on the idea that, hey, we play in the AFC North. And so, when you're going up against Lamar Jackson and Baker Mayfield and teams that are more run heavy than the rest of the league, then maybe we can get away with having a secondary that is going to be, if things go poorly, bottom half of the league again, right? We're going to go back to being the old Steelers in the secondary, certainly from the corner position. Minka can hide some of this, but only so much. It's a huge problem, and it's why if Steeler fans need to be worried today, be worried about the offense, and all the Ben and Canada stuff we talked about. But remember the days of Antoine Blake. Remember the days of Ross Cockrell. Remember the days of those guys, and how much that drove that defense down into the gutter. Artie Burns, right? This is a team that could easily, if the cornerback situation doesn't work out, they go from a top 5 to 15, right? I mean, that's what happens when you don't have good corner play in the National Football League.
Yeah, Browns fans will be familiar with that concept.
Yeah, but they have nothing. Steeler fans have nothing to worry about. James Pierre's gonna be a Hall of Famer. Yada yada.
Yeah, well, we'll see if James Pierre plays in 2021 or makes the team. We'll see.
Better, because I got this jersey coming. Like I'm gonna, it's gonna look real silly.
You actually get one? What number does he wear? Does he have a jersey number?
Yeah, he has a jersey number. Why can't I remember? Yeah, what jersey number is he actually?
This is not
good. 42. What am I talking about? 42, obviously.
He wears 42?
Yeah.
If he actually gets playing time this year, I guarantee he changes that number.
He's got it. Yeah, no, like bad numbers. Well, this is, and I talked about this on Locked On Steelers, but this is one of the reasons why Minkah Fitzpatrick is the best safety in the league is because 39 is a terrible number. Terrible. It's a running back number, basically. Right? Willie Parker was 39.
I would argue there's been a couple of good safeties with that high 30 number, though.
Well, Darren Perry was a good Steeler with 39, which has been pointed out to me after.
Deshaun Gibson was always a good player. It's just weird that he has 39. That 30, the weird 30 number, and he was drafted in the first round. Usually it ends up like an undrafted guy gets like a ugly number like that. You know what I mean? Right. I feel like a safety can get away with a high 30, early 40 number. A corner can't. If you're a corner out there, that looks like a mismatch.
If you're a corner with a bad number, you really got to overcome that. And again, that's Quincy. It's another thing why James Pierre is so good because he's overcoming being given such a terrible number at 42.
He's got to get like the 2 or something or the 4.
No single digits. We don't do single digits in Pittsburgh. We are very much. And by the way, Browns fans, I do want to mention one thing. I was doing some research for AFC North Talk. Found out today that JOK is going to be wearing what, number 20, 28?
Yeah, he's wearing 28.
Yeah, 20 linebacker numbers. Tony's all out on that. I apologize for him, but he's going to be a bust. That's a massive bust.
Don't bring your what was the guy you got from Tampa? Mark Barron. Yeah. Don't bring your Mark Barron.
Massive bust. Massive bust. I apologize. You guys know me. I like JOK. Okay, you watch the draft podcast. I love JOK. Massive. Because
Mark Barron did it. Now it's gonna
look good, play good, right? It's one of those
he couldn't get 6, so
Look, the Bucs changed their uniform again. They changed it back to retro, right, to make it, and then they won the Super Bowl, right? Look good, play good. The number matters, and JOK.
Did you see what the Browns were wearing the 3 previous years before this?
They got it. You can't screw these kids up, man. It's the worst thing you can do as a franchise is give a player a bad number. 28 as a linebacker.
Oh, Marlon Humphrey had 29, and then he got really good when he got the crappy number.
Oh, that's right. Wait, what number is he now?
He's like 40 something.
Oh yeah, he is. He's well, again, 47, isn't he? Is he 47?
No, he's not 47. I think it's like 40, 46. We're gonna research this.
I'm live on air. We're looking at Marlon Humphrey's number right now because that's what we do.
42 or 44?
44.
Yeah, it's a real ugly number for a corner. So
terrible. And that's why it's the best corner in the league. No offense to Denzel Ward.
Yeah, he also chokes people. So it makes sense he wears number 44. So, fun stuff here. Number theory. We went through it all, covering the Steelers and their training camp and what they could expect to see this year. Tony, if there are any Steeler fans in the audience or people just like Tony, let them know where to find you.
Sure, you can follow me on Twitter at Steeler Country. You can find me on AFC North Talk every Tuesday, 5:45 p.m. Eastern Time. We are talking about the linebackers this week. We had big discussion coming up later about the safeties, which I'm sure Browns fans will be interested in. So check that out, AFC North Talk on YouTube. And you can also check out my YouTube channel, Steeler Country with Tony Serino.
Definitely, guys. Check that out. You also check us out on AFC North Talk every Tuesday. Starting in the season, we're going to do Tuesdays and Thursdays. My schedule is about to be packed. So let's do it. Make sure you're subscribed to all of those things. You don't want to miss out on some of the best football coverage on this website. But again, guys, I want to thank you for watching. Have a great day. Have a good night.